Three men won the Nobel Prize for discovering the shape of DNA. But the single most important piece of evidence, the photograph that revealed it, was taken by a woman they never credited. She was already dead, and she never even knew they'd seen it. She's the first of 8 geniuses who were robbed. Let's start with her. Her name was Rosalind Franklin, and she could photograph the invisible. In 1952, at King's College London, she aimed her X-ray equipment at a strand of DNA and, after 100 hours of exposure, captured it. Photograph 51, the clearest image anyone had ever taken of the molecule of life. It showed, unmistakably, a spiral. There was one problem. A colleague, Maurice Wilkins, had access to her photographs, and without asking her, he showed photo 51 to 2 rivals racing for the same prize at Cambridge, James Watson and Francis Crick. Watson later admitted that the instant he saw it, his mouth fell open and his pulse began to race. Within weeks, they unveiled the famous double helix. The evidence that cracked it open was hers. In 1962, Watson, Crick and Wilkins shared the Nobel Prize. Franklin's name went unspoken. She had died of ovarian cancer 4 years earlier, at 37, likely from the very radiation she used to see the unseen. She never even knew her photograph had been shown to her rivals. So if her data built the model, why was her name the one that vanished? Because Franklin was not the first. Decades earlier, it happened to a woman whose discovery could level a city. Lise Meitner was a physicist in Berlin, brilliant, meticulous, and Jewish. For 30 years, she worked beside the chemist Otto Hahn, hunting the secrets of the atom. Then, in 1938, Nazi Germany made her a target, and she fled for her life with barely a suitcase. From exile, she kept working, when Hahn wrote to her with a result he couldn't explain, a uranium atom that seemed to have split in 2. It was Meitner, with her nephew Otto Frisch, who understood it. She did the math. She explained the physics. She even gave it its name, nuclear fission. In 1944, the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded for splitting the atom. It went to Otto Hahn, alone. The woman who explained the very thing he had measured was left off entirely. She refused, to her credit, to help build the bomb her physics made possible. Today, there is an element on the periodic table named in her honor, Meitnerium, a quiet apology written in atoms. But what happens when the person overlooked isn't your colleague, but your own student? In 1967, a graduate student named Jocelyn Bell was combing through nearly 5 kilometers of paper. Printouts from a radio telescope she had helped build by hand. Everyone else saw noise. She saw a bit of scruff, a signal pulsing with impossible regularity every 1.3 seconds. A cosmic heartbeat. They half joked it might be aliens. They labeled it LGM-1, Little Green Men. But Bell had found something stranger, a pulsar, the spinning ultra-dense corpse of a dead star. One of the great discoveries of the century. In 1974, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded for it, to her supervisor Anthony Hewish. Bell, who first spotted the signal and insisted it was real, was not included. She has spent her life refusing to be bitter. And decades later, when she won a $3 million physics prize, she gave every penny away to help women and outsiders become the scientists the world keeps overlooking. She turned an injustice into a doorway. But not everyone who was ignored lived to be proven right. Cecilia Payne wanted to know what the stars were made of. In 1925, in her Harvard doctoral thesis, she found the answer, and it was staggering. The stars are made overwhelmingly of hydrogen, the simplest element in the universe. It was one of the most important insights in the history of astronomy. It was also, according to the leading expert of the day, impossible. A senior astronomer, Henry Norris Russell, reviewed her work and told her the result was clearly impossible. Under pressure, she added a line dismissing her own conclusion as spurious. 4 years later, Russell ran the numbers himself, reached the exact same result, and published it. For decades, the discovery was credited largely to him. Payne was right, everyone else was wrong. And she had been talked out of her own breakthrough by the very people meant to judge it. Sometimes the credit is taken by a person. Sometimes it's stolen by the role of a prize committee. Chien-Shiung Wu was so gifted they called her the First Lady of Physics. In 1956, two theorists, Tsung-Dao Lee and Chen-Ning Yang, had a radical idea that one of the assumed symmetries of the universe might be broken. But it was only an idea. They needed someone to prove it. They turned to Wu. In a punishing experiment cooled to near absolute zero, she did what no one else could. She showed it was true, overturning a law of physics taken for granted for decades. The very next year, 1957, the Nobel Prize in Physics went to Lee and Yang for the theory. Wu, whose experiment turned their guess into accepted fact, was not included. Without her hands at the equipment, their idea would have stayed just that. An idea. The prize went to the men who imagined it, not the woman who proved it. Wu was denied a reward. Our next man was denied something worse, the right to be believed at all. In 1912, a German meteorologist stood before a room of geologists and told them the ground beneath their feet was moving. His name was Alfred Wegener, and his idea was heresy. He'd noticed what a child notices on a map. The coastlines of Africa and South America fit together like torn pieces of one page. He proposed the continents had once been joined and had drifted apart. He called it continental drift. The establishment didn't just disagree, they mocked him. He wasn't a real geologist. He couldn't explain how continents could plow through solid rock. For decades, his theory was a punchline. Wegener never lived to be vindicated. In 1930, on an expedition across the Greenland ice sheet, he died out on the ice at 50. 30 years later, the theory of plate tectonics proved him almost entirely right. The continents do move. Today, it's the bedrock of geology, taught to every schoolchild. He was ignored for being ahead of his time, but one man was so far ahead, the world forgot him for 35 years. In a monastery garden in what is now the Czech Republic, a monk named Gregor Mendel spent 7 years growing peas, nearly 30,000 of them. He counted every plant, tall and short, wrinkled and smooth, and in those numbers he found the hidden rules of inheritance itself. He had discovered genetics. In 1866 he published. And nothing happened. The paper was cited a mere handful of times. The world simply wasn't ready to understand it. Mendel died in 1884, an abbot, his life's work gathering dust, completely unrecognized. It took until 1900, 16 years after his death, for 3 separate scientists to independently rediscover the same laws, unearth his forgotten paper, and realize a monk had beaten them all by a generation. Today, he is called the father of genetics, but he never knew it. He died believing his greatest work had failed. At least Mendel never had to watch someone else accept his prize. Douglas Prasher did. In the 1980s and 90s, a biologist named Douglas Prasher had a vision. He was obsessed with a jellyfish protein that glowed green, and he believed that if he could isolate the gene behind it, it could become one of the most powerful tools in all of science, a way to make the invisible machinery of living cells light up before our eyes. He was right. He was also broke. His funding ran out before he could finish. So Prasher did something remarkably generous. He handed his research and his cloned gene to 2 scientists who asked, Martin Chalfie and Roger Tsien. Go ahead, he told them. Green fluorescent protein went on to revolutionize biology, lighting up cancer cells, neurons, the spread of viruses. In 2008, it won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. Douglas Prasher was not on the list. When the prize was announced, he wasn't running a lab. He was earning about $10 an hour, driving a courtesy shuttle bus at a car dealership in Alabama. The winners acknowledged him openly. One, Roger Tsien, later hired Prasher into his own lab. But the Nobel is never split more than 3 ways, and the man who lit the spark was behind the wheel of a shuttle bus when the world celebrated the fire. 8 discoveries: the shape of life, the splitting of the atom, the death of stars, the drift of continents, the code of inheritance, the light inside a cell. Every one of them changed the world, and not one of the people we met tonight got the credit they earned. So why does it keep happening? Part of it is human. Fame is a spotlight, and a spotlight only lands on a few faces at a time. Prizes go to individuals, discoveries are made by many, and too often that spotlight has skipped over women, Over outsiders, over the quiet ones, counting peas in a garden or reading scruff on a printout at 3 in the morning. But here is the thing about history, it can be rewritten. Franklin's name is now on buildings and Mars rovers. Meitner has her element, Bell Burnell has her prize, and gave it away. The record can be corrected, but only if we keep telling the stories. Only if we remember. That is what this channel is for. The obscura archives exist for the people history filed away and forgot. The truth doesn't disappear when it's ignored. It just waits for someone to dig it up. Subscribe, because the obscura archives are full of people the world was never supposed to forget.